Next up, we are moving into the winner's bracket as I untangle my tongue from the roof of my mouth. Point of Reach is the map that is taking place on, and Yudi and Blastchild are the opponents. Yudi is on the south side, Cybrin. He is dropping a land factory first and pushing that Hydro after a P-Gen and 4 Mexes. And on the north side, we've got Blastchild, who has also gone land factory and is foregoing the power generator for a Hydro Rush direct. So Point of Reach is a map that is heavily dependent on expansion patterns. So you gotta get out a transport early. You gotta try to shoot down your opponent's transport. You gotta try to bomb your opponent's expansions. Whatever you can do to slow them down, that is what you gotta do. And as you can see with the reclaim, you do have a lot of tree clumps, but there are no rocks. There's gonna be 10 mass clumps of trees, hither and yon scattered about. And you're just going to have to get your engineers out and on it to be able to snag those things effectively. Looks like Yudi is going to get one of them before assisting the engineer on the Hydro build. And then we've got an air factory second after 4 power generators. Now, I think this might be a little bit unnecessary. If you're going for a really fast transport build, you might be able to actually swing the air factory and the transport off of reclaim. I don't know how much that would set you back overall. I would be interested to see a discussion in the chat by people who are better at FAF than me. Actually, it might be everyone, because Yudi and Blastchild, both of them being significantly higher ranked than I am, have both opted for power generators instead of going for the air factory off of reclaim. But it is a thought nonetheless that perhaps someone has tried at some point. So, Blastchild is going to finish his air factory first, seeing as he built 1 fewer power generators, and will be building a transport post haste with the assistance of his engineers. So he is going all in on the transport rush, will be going for probably the right side island and walking ACU to the left, because that is the meta that I typically see. And Yudi has opted for a scout, then a transport. It'll give him an extra engineer to put on said transport, and we'll see how he go. I most often see people get this island and this island, although sometimes you'll see the clump of 3 versus the clump of 3, but most of the time people just can't forego, yes, the closer position to the enemy, because there's some raiding options that you can participate in from this side, and things can work rather well for you. It looks like Yudi was able to get 5 engineers in the transport, and he's dropping a couple here. It's probably 2 and 3, but Blastchild is going to beat him to that location and should be able to deny the drop. Now, judging by Yudi's pattern here, most people drop their engineers in the middle of the mexes. So, funny thing, I know that building under a transport is an exploit for stopping a drop. However, if you just so happen to build a factory where a transport drops significantly later, well, then it's not much of a problem. So if you build a factory in the middle of the mech, sometimes you will get that thing dead. Now, Yudi has seen the transport dropping the engineers there. They're immediately going for a land factory. That is potentially not scouted by Blastchild. No, it is not. But there is an air scout coming in. So this is going to be a straight up duke it out fight for the middle. There's the transport. There's the 3 engineers. He sees it. He can hopefully kill it. Meanwhile, on the left side of the map, we've got a couple of interceptors out. We've got naval factories planned over that away. 1 behind, probably some over here once the build power is up. And Auroras are out. So Hydro build scheduled in between the land factories. That is not good at all. Yo, you should probably... Oh, the twitchy Aurora movement doing wonders to keep that thing alive for as long as possible. But unfortunately, all of the engineers are going to stay alive until Aurora number 2 comes in and wrecks the party. There's going to be 2 land factories online, but I fear the 3rd one shall never make it into existence. That Aurora is going to die, but the point defense comes online just in time to eliminate the Mantis on that side, land a couple of hits over there, and now there's a land scout out. I do believe that Blastchild will be able to win this. Engineers are down. Gonna need a Medusa, which is coming out of the factory on the opposing side, but a Fervor is already in the field that will be able to knock those land factories out of commission. It's just a matter of keeping this stuff alive until the rest can be built. But Yudi is wasting no time in moving in on the rest of these buildings. T1 Bomber coming in to try and assist as more Mantis leave. If you know you're going to lose the factories anyway, you might as well become as big a pain in the butt as you possibly can in retaliation. Okay, I am assuming that a transport got shot down over here because there's a clump of 4 engineers that wouldn't be in the water otherwise. We have the ACU moving into the left territory as expected, and Yudi is doing a pretty phenomenal job of expanding as quickly as is humanly possible. It's 43 to 43 mass income, 600 power in favor of Yudi to 480 on Blast Shield's side, now 500, and Yudi is already in possession of nearly 2 full main islands, and he's already got his expansion islands nailed down, whereas Blast Shield only has his home island and half of 2 additional islands. That is where the 10 mass discrepancy is coming from now, and that will probably grow over time. Looks like we've got a full contingent of 6 engineers dropped by that transport. That's going to drop 3 land factories immediately, lock down this island as quickly as possible. So something that I see going wrong in the very near future is Blast Shield just so happens to possess the Aeon tech. And Aeon has floaty tanks. And where do you think those floaty tanks will go? But directly onto the other island where only 1 land factory exists and the ACU has not yet made it. The ACU is actually just parked offshore, being completely useless. So I think that this massive initial lead that Yudi has come into possession of is probably about to falter somewhat due to an unfortunate happenstance with Auroras. And in fact, that is going to be so unfortunate as to require the picking up of all of the units that were just dropped on this island and their relocation. No, Yudi is actually moving those to the north. Interesting. Those are going to drop right over here. They will be scouted. There is a radar there, but if they manage to make it to the ground, they will be able to raid this entire front edge of the island rather effectively indeed. We've got scouts over here, which have been killed, and I am very surprised that Yudi is not dropping a point defense in his home base, seeing as that is pretty much the only thing that can completely deny an Aurora in this particular situation. Drop has been KO'd by the interceptors, so no luck there. And we've now got 2 naval factories in the water for Blast Shield and 4 going on 6 for Yudi. So Yudi is definitely going to be playing heavy navy this time around. Hopefully Blast Shield scales up his production, because otherwise he is going to be in a bit of a pickle. Over on the right, we've got full loss of the Hydro and about half the mexes on this island, as well as the expansion. I am hoping that he has this scouted. In comes the Air Scout. There's the point defense configuration. Please notice it and pull your units back, because otherwise that is a death trap. Never mind, it is just going to be a death trap. You gotta drop some artillery onto the other side if you hope to compete with the point defense, and that's exactly why point defense is your friend when you're versus Auroras on opposing islands. Over in the back here, we did take a pretty significant loss to build power. Blast Shield losing engineers to the brave little frigate that could in the rear of the base, and that is still just going for the build power, the single most valuable thing you can kill with those early frigates. Yes, you're going to lose the frigate. Yes, it's going to hurt you, but it's going to hurt your opponent more when they can't build enough frigates to deny the second wave. Over here, settled on 2 land factories, and one of them, oh my, is going for the T2HQ upgrade. That is probably going to end in tack launchers, if I had to guess, but actually, you know what? No, that is going to end in Wagners. That's what's going to happen. Wagners galore, sinking into the deep blue and then popping up where you least expect them to take out things that should definitely still be alive if you're going to win the game. I love it. I love everything about it. Let's see how this goes. Yudi does have his ACU in a combat position on the right side island, so that is quite nice to see. But we are going to have another couple of mass extractors lost as Auroras continue to move around the outside of the map. Now, Yudi should be able to deny these with frigates as long as he micros, because the frigates do have longer range than Auroras and a better HP damage distribution by quite a margin. And you can see that here, especially with the area of effect. When the Auroras clump up, that is a monstrous amount of damage that those frigates can do. One of them now smoking, but vetted. So now it's going to regen and do quite nicely for itself. Well freaking done, good sir. Oh, we have a drop coming in. That is Medusas. But there is already a Wagner in the field. So that should be able to dispatch those artillery pretty quickly and effectively. Lucky, lucky son of a gun. But this is going to tip off Blast Shield to the fact that T2 is in the field. He does have that scouted, which is nice. Medusa is going to attempt at least a kill on the Hydro, but unfortunately it is not going to get it. Blast Shield currently ahead in eco, mainly due to T2 mass extractor upgrades, I think. We've got 4 in this space. And we have got 1, 2, 3. What now? I would have thought. Never mind. Okay. Well, they're running neck and neck now, so it does not matter. Yudi at 1.8k power and Blast Shield at 1.5k. We do have T2 air and a power generator online for Yudi, who is now going for an additional T1 transport. I think that may actually be his old build queue. He may have added things to it, but not changed it. On the north side, we have T2 air for Blast Shield as well, which is going to result in a lovely little thing called Swift Winds, which are going to be absolutely brilliant for dealing with the opposing faction's air. More Medusas coming in, trying to get that Hydro once again. But another Wagner coming out of the factory and dealing death to those units in passing. Does the Wagner have AoE? That almost seemed like it had AoE. Maybe it was just killing them quicker than I thought they would. But Wagners are in the base now. There's a T1 point defense to deny. It is going to have to move around to the right to escape that. But thankfully, Aeon bombers have stun. So that is going to slow it down a little bit and damage it a little bit more. Looking at the Navy build, we do have 6 naval factories online versus 4, which would indicate that Yudi is going to slowly but surely take control of that aspect of the game. However, Blast Shield is going to win air, I think. Let me take a look at the counts. We have got a total of 82, with a fourth of them being out of fuel. Blast Shield has got 43 plus 6 Swift Winds and is building straight Swift Winds with more interceptors coming out of the factories over here. So in very short order, he should be able to overcome the enemy Air Force, and then it will be good news for him as T2 gunships flood across the map. In the meantime, it's a matter of chasing down all these nasty frigates and also dealing with the Wagners that are popping up and annoying him all over the place. Unfortunately, on a 20-kilometer map, your ACU is of limited help in these situations. This is where you pull a farms and have a T2 transport, and you just keep T2 transporting your ACU around to deal with the units so that you overcome the maneuverability deficit. You're able to deliver those overcharges in strategic locations. Either that or you could build point defense in your critical areas, which would probably be the better option, to be honest. Alright, Blast Shield locking down a couple of frigates over on the right. That is going to be a win for him. If we take a look at the Navy total, though, I do believe we shall see Yudi ahead. That is going to be 24 frigates versus 20 frigates. and about to be a couple less due to the engagement right here with extremely unfavorable numbers. Also, on the left-hand side, it looks like the Aeon frigates were going to attempt a kill on the T2 HQ, but instead, a sacrifice of the naval strength takes place. Not even gonna get this thing down and lose about 8 frigates in the process. That is a horrible choice to make, and unfortunately, that one is going to bite Blast Shield pretty freaking hard. UD overall currently looks slightly ahead in several areas, but on the south side, Blast Shield is countering. He's actually got Blazes up. Blazes are going to lose mass to mass against Wagners in a straight up fight. They simply do not have the DPS that is necessary. However, Blast Shield can continue to bring T1 units to the fight, and he is going to eliminate all the T2, which opens him up for an opportunity on 2 T2 mass extractor kills. Those Blazes are also going to be a little bit better at dealing with frigates than the Auroras are, thanks to their superior speed. And no, actually, I think they have shorter range by a tiny, tiny little bit. Let's actually go take a look-see. That is going to be Blazes at 45 range and Auroras at 26 range. That cannot be right. Blazes have 45 range? No, DPS, sorry, range 23. I'm looking at the wrong number. Yep, they have 3 shorter range. I was about to say, that does not sound right. The Aeon Guncom, I don't think even has... even has that level of range. We have hit a stall in the live replay, which means probably 5 minutes in the future, the game has ended. Plasma, we're not giving you a Blaze with 45 range. This is not happening. Questions, comments, snide remarks are welcome. We're going to be waiting through for about 2 minutes on this to hopefully see if the game picks up again. On the north side, I like the T2 gunships. Those are killing off a couple of Wagners up there. It's difficult without seeing the entire map to decide who would take it if we had to pick a winner right this second. UD is obviously ahead in Navy count and in mass income, and in power income, and in score, and in units in the field, and in map control. Okay, maybe not as hard as I thought. But there is a potential for Blast Shield to pull a clean snipe. I don't know. Roey says that yes, the game has ended. Please do not spoil the winner. Triax, I refunded everyone's points. A fire beetle with 45 range? Dude, that might as well be a nuke. Like, just have the Billy fire beetles. That would be a better thing. I'm guessing that UD probably won. Alright, the live replay has broken. Somebody in the chat, break it. Or actually, I can just zippity-doo-dah over here. Unfortunately, we will not get a resolution on this game. UD has won it. Blast Shield drops down into the loser's bracket. Very, very unfortunate. The game ended like 4 minutes into you casting it. Oh well. So the replay is definitely broken. Alright, well that is unfortunate indeed. Well played to both of these guys. The shenanigans run free with amphibious and hover tanks and all manner of other things flying around. What was the kill shot? Did Blodir just give up after being harassed out of existence? Because it seems like Blast Shield was, or not Blodir, Blast Shield. Blast Shield was getting harassed pretty heavily. Although someone may not have watched the game, so it might not be important. I'm going to cut it there. Moving on now to the final in the losers bracket. It's Blast Chilled versus Mephi. Of course, a couple of guys that we've seen a fair bit before because both of them have come either most of the way or all the way through their respective brackets. These guys have drawn Seraphim and UEF, which is going to put Blast Chilled a bit on his back foot because the hover artillery is going to be a rather strong harassment tool around the back edge of the map, which is, by the way, Craftiest Maximus, if I didn't say that already, because I'm starting to lose my mind with this tournament moving on through the paces. So, Blast Chilled on the left-hand side, UEF dropping a couple of mass extractors, waiting for the engineer to come in that will let him build the Hydro. Of course, on tag, you do get to build 4 mexes and a Hydro in your home base with 2 more on the expansion. But the caveat there is if you lose naval control, all of this can be killed by frigates. And that is not a good time to be having on this map. All of the mexes on the outside edge can be harassed from the water. Even these, this is not a cliff that is going to keep you from getting hits. These 2 mass extractors, strangely enough, are actually the safest to upgrade because they cannot be hit by frigates. Then you've got all of the expansion islands, and look at the reclaim fields over there. You got to get those as quickly as possible to try to scale up your land production. And as Plasma was saying earlier on, you have to build up both land and navy with strong air control in order to win on this map. You have to have all 3. It is one of the few maps that requires this. If you lose the center, it is possible in outlying circumstances to still win. I had someone beat me by building a T2 naval factory up here spamming Salem's, and they had these 12 mass extractors with T1 power generators built on each island, and they were able to kill me because the Salem's were able to harass me out of existence from the water, and I couldn't do anything. But that is an extreme outlying circumstance. So you have to win the middle, and you have to win the navy, or swarm your opponent really, really freaking quickly if they do win the navy. Blast Chilled pausing for just a moment to let his eco recover before he finishes up that second land factory. It looks like he's going 3rd air. Mephi is going 2nd air and then has a power grid laid out for additional air factories as well. Mephi yelling, no, no, I'm not sure why. Possibly to this raid that was attempted in the middle, but that was shut down very quickly indeed. We've got the engineer building up a couple of mass extractors there, this one being relatively successful as well. I'm sure that raid was intended to go right down here and up onto this ledge, where it would be able to do some dastardly deeds to the units contained thereon. Looks like ACU is going to the north, so that's going to be relatively standard meta play. And the ACU has not yet left the base for Blast Chilled, but he does have already a naval factory, which his opponent does not have, although it is building engineers for some strange reason. Naval factories are not super efficient at building engineers. They cost more, and I think they have a longer roll-off time. I'm not 100% sure. Let's count. So we've got completion 2, 3, 4, 5 seconds-ish to... Yeah. Okay, so the roll-off time is definitely longer on the naval factory. Not a super great thing, but I'm sure that he has his reasons. T1 bomber coming in from Mephi. That is potentially going to wreak some havoc on the expansioneers. I'm sure targeted on that engineer, which the scout just flew over. That is going to shut down the build on these outlying mass extractors that was planned oh so carefully. Bomb collides and wrecks all of those hopes and dreams. And then that is going to continue over and kill off some of the stuff in the Navy. Over on the right-hand side, Mephi dropping 2 naval factories of his own as Blast Chilled has queued a second naval factory over to this edge. So we'll just have to see how well this works out for the respective players as the engineer manages to dodge yet another pass from the T1 bomber. And it goes down, tumbling through the air as it reaches the ground. You know, that actually makes sense as a crash, because these are not exactly aerodynamic structures. I mean, they kind of look like they would maneuver well in atmosphere, but I always assumed that anti-grav or some sort of vertical thrust was involved with the air units in Supreme Commander, because they can all come to full stops and hover. So falling and then it flipping end over end seems like kind of a vaguely accurate representation of how it would actually fall in real life. This is a total tangent, but whatever. Engineer is probably about to die up there, because there is a striker at 68 HP that is running in upon it. Hopefully it will get killed off, because nobody likes the sad death of an engineer unless it's on the opposing team. But this, I don't know if this will be successful or not. Striker firing at that. Oh dear. It will actually get the engineer kill. And oh! Land Factory built to try and save it, but the tank was able to take it out with the first shot, and the engineer is dead. That is going to be a long time walking there. Unfortunate that that Land Factory hadn't been built slightly sooner, because if there had been more of a space between the shots, it may have been able to get enough HP on the Land Factory to deny a second cannon shell, but I don't know that that would have worked. No, there's not enough time. Factory builds way too slowly, HP wise. All right, looking at things as a whole, Mephi has got a slightly superior hold on the outlying edges. He's got all 3 mexes built in both of his locations, which Blast Shield does not. He's got 2 naval factories built, which Blast Shield does not, and going on a 3rd. And he's got a superior number of naval units, question mark? No, he does not. He has 1 frigate versus 1 frigate and a sub. So it will take him a couple of minutes to catch up on that, but for the time being, he's looking okay. There's the deaths of another pair of engineers, sad though they be. And on the front line, I love this. We've actually got 3 raiding Thams up on the front line that will be able to separate and conquer a single thing there. Selen is going to get the cleanup. No, it retargeted on the tanks. That could have been the hero Selen that cleaned up that mass extractor and actually made the raid worth it, but unfortunately, it is not meant to be. We've got 2 engineers on the transport, which will be dropping the outside edges. Kind of unfortunate that there weren't 3, because he would have been able to get every single plateau. Something to remember about this, there's a 75 mass rock on each plateau, so dropping the engineer there pays for itself just with that rock. And then you also get the mass extractors out of it. So bonus icing on the cake as far as I'm concerned. Mephi is currently building a factory here, which is going to slightly hamper his efforts to fire at things with the ACU, but hopefully he'll be alright. We've got some units that are stalled there, as well as some of the back of the base that are going to wreak a little havoc, as it were. Over on the left, I'm finding this interesting how different people approach this map. Some people like to build concentrated factories. We're seeing that from Blast Shield. He's got a total of 6, number 7 coming online. Every single land factory he owns is in his core base, except for this one by his ACU that I just now realized negates my previous statement. Mephi, on the other hand, is spreading his factories out towards the center, of which he has 8 going on 9. And then he's also got 3 land factories on the outside edge, and probably will be building more. So the advantage to this is that your build power comes up very, very quickly, and you're able to push things out towards the center. The advantage to this is that if you lose any one area, it's not as key. You're not going to get crippled by your build power disappearing in any one location. However, your units take longer to build because you don't have this build power online at the beginning of the game. So it's there's pros and cons to each aspect of it. You just kind of have to pick what works best for you. Although both of these players do have a minimum of 6 land factories in the core, so you can probably assume that that is a safe bet to go for. T2HQ coming into play. Blast Shield dropping that son of a diddly to get some pillars online, I am sure. Meanwhile, Mephi is going to continue to increase his lead in economy by dropping the outside plateaus as well as the inside. And he is going to have enough engineers to drop all 3 this time around. So that is going to give him a pretty significant 24 mass bonus, assuming 50-50 map control of the middle and the Navy. Not an insignificant thing, to be sure. Let me go click in. Blast Shield is currently at 47 and 760. Mephi at 71 and 900. That is exactly what I was talking about. Mephi is looking at 44 tanks, 17 arty, 8 interceptors. Blast Shield at 28 and 8. So he is behind on eco, on unit count, but he does have that T2 HQ. So hopefully, with a couple of pillars coming out, he'll be able to make up some of the ground that he's lost as far as map control and unit count. That is the trade-off, after all, for the T2 HQ. Something else that you need to consider relatively early on is TMD in your base, because if you do not, there will inevitably be attack missiles coming from the other player. That is a huge deal. Oh, snap. That was a beautifully sniped transport. Blast Shield seeing that coming across on his, I'm sure, radar. Yes, there it is right there. No way that an 1800 player doesn't have a radar. I know that I do that quite often, but we must assume that they know better. That's going to be a drop transport with quite a bit of mass aboard, and we now have our first pillars entering the field. It's going to be an additional air factory as well. There's only one lightly assisted from Mephi, so air shouldn't be that much of an issue, I wouldn't think. I'm assuming he has more interceptors. It looks like he has perhaps 1 or 2 more inties than his opponent does. But he's going in for more air, so more power to him, I suppose. T2 engineers assisting to get a little bit better handle on that control. And all of the other factories are still producing T1. So, first pillar is running out towards the front. We'll see how this engagement goes. There's also a T2 HQ on the other side that is now going to start building Ilshivas. So the Ilshivas are going to give pillars a run for their money on a mass-to-mass basis due to the superior range. Oh, that is a brave little engineer over there. A single tank will take that down, but I suppose when you have a frigate to watch your back, you might as well drop in there. Blast Shield moving up with the commander to try and kill off some of these units, but I think that his will is faltering slightly. Mephi has got such a massive advantage in both eco and map control and is successfully raiding everything around the outside edge. It's also 3 naval factories to 3 naval factories, so as the game moves forward, since there's more eco on this side, Mephi will come out with a lead in Navy as well. Pillars moving up, trying to take advantage of the T2 push as quickly as possible. That's going to be another transport full of engineers coming up to the middle to try and get this reclaim in hand. But unfortunately, there are going to be tanks available, so that transport is going to be a waste. Engineers will die and nothing shall be gained. Although perhaps a couple of tanks might get reclaimed. Nope. No order will be issued, so that is an unfortunate circumstance indeed. Bit of a counter raid going on. Blast Shield with his anti-air tanks coming in to help win him air control. That is quite the lucky hit indeed, knocking some off that. But look at this. Mephi is already T2 gun and is almost complete on nano upgrade. That is going to be a ridiculously strong commander, mostly due to the additional regen, although yes, the HP is going to have something to do with it. 1,500 of it at his disposal, as he is going to lose out on build power, air, and mexes in the rear. That ACU is going to move up now. T2 power generator placed over there. That's why he went T2 on the ACU, to get that online. Let me go right here. Click in on Mephi. That is going to be 80 regen per tick on 15,000 HP. A strong ACU if ever there was one. Let's actually go over to Blast Shield and select the ACU. That's going to be 10 regen per tick on 12,000 HP. Not nearly as survivable and completely unupgraded. We can cancel out of this and set focus army to -1. Brilliant. Mephi is going to be more than a match for anything on the map right now, except for this little thing called air. So on the south side, we have one air factory still, which is assisted by 2 engineers. So that is going to be 1.5 factories in production, although the amount of Ilshivas is too damn high that are being built right now. On the other side, Blast Shield has 2 air factories, which are both paused, so he has effectively 0 air factories worth of production. I was really hoping that we would see something exciting coming out of that factory to try and suppress Mephi's ACU, but unfortunately, it is just not meant to be. Ilshiva's walking into the middle of a group of pillars and strikers. I think that he is going to lose that initial engagement. However, with the amount of units that he has at the rear moving up, I don't see any way that Blast Shield is going to maintain on this. Blast Shield was able to build the front mass extractors and reclaim the rear, and he is currently doing okay in Navy. But we've now got an additional 4 naval factories planned for Mephi due to having all of this mass that he can't even hope to spend. And his ACU is just going to move forward as an unstoppable force of nature across these units and plow into this base. Mephi actually dropping T2 point defense. Again, adding insult to injury with that upgraded ACU. That is a thing to behold. That's going to give him an opportunity to just slowly whittle away at his opponent's forces while standing at a safe distance. Nearly killed that mass extractor with the crossfire. Zero in on the pillar there. A little bit of a run by up here, but I think with the Zooies that have now targeted that tank, it will probably go down very quickly indeed. We do have a triad up in the center, which will help with some unit denial. But overall, Mephi is just owning this center portion of the map, and I don't think there's anything Blast Shield can do to stop it. Engineers transporting in for more reclaim in the center. The mark of a good player, getting that reclaim as quickly as possible and reinvesting it into something beautiful. We do have, I think, an Ilshiva stuck in a T2. No, never mind. That is actually everything being paused so that Mephi can build T2 point defense as fast as he possibly can. That is what that is. T2 point defense making its mark, wearing down all those pillars slowly but surely as we get an additional 5 Ilshivas moving up from the rear versus a paltry few 4 pillars to hold on the front line. Yes, the triad is going to do something, but I posit that it is not enough. Mephi, guided in by his T1 tanks, is going to approach, and I think that he's in the build power. That is GG. There is absolutely nothing that Blast Shield can do to stop this now. This ACU can just shrug off whatever comes. Not a worry, not a care in the world. And just continue the kill spree. Blast Shield, I wouldn't blame you at all if you wanted to control K now. Because that is a sad thing indeed. To watch your base going under and not being able to do anything about it. Yeah, the Ilshivas are quite bad about that, getting stuck on the bottom of the factory. It looks like he saw it. Yep, had to control K and Ilshiva and clear the factory in order for it to continue producing. That's bad. That is a weird bug to have. Oh, it's going to do it again. It's going to do it again. It's a pathfinding glitch. It goes inside the factory and then gets stuck. Okay, so it's something to do with the hitboxes on the factory, I think. Yep, it's stuck and it's no longer producing. So the fix for it is to move these engineers out from in front and not get the Ilsheva stuck. Mephi, you son of a gun. Oh, you're building T1 point defense. Okay. Was about to say, I thought he was in the middle of his opponent's base reclaiming while he could be killing him. But it is not. Nearly up to 100 regen per tick. Blast Shield goes down. Unfortunately, nothing he could do with that air control to capitalize on it. G freaking G. Mephi played very strongly on that one. We have now reached the finals of the qualifiers. This is going to be Yudi versus Mephi. The map is Settins, and they're taking front slots with random factions. So Yudi has drawn UEF, Seraphim for Mephi. That's going to be Land Factory first for both of them, I am sure. Of course, if Yudi wins, since he is coming in from the winner's bracket, he takes the qualifiers. If Mephi wins, there will be another game in order to determine the winner overall, because it has to be a 2 out of 3 win. Okay, so it looks like we've got 3 power generators, second land factory for Mephi, as I collect my thoughts here about what exactly is going on in my poor tired brain. We've got a Selin out of the factory first to go across and scout, and Yudi is going to be dropping 6 power generators and going for a second air factory, which is rather a unique choice. I don't know. Uh-oh. We may have a disconnect. Aha! It has picked up again. No such luck. Second air factory, I think, is fine because you're technically separated by the width of a 10-kilometer map. So it's probably not the end of the world, but the Settins in me, the Settins player in me just freaks out at the thought of a second air factory on Settins front, because inevitably you're going to get rushed down with land units. I know that's not actually the case. I know that's not how this goes in a 1 versus 1 game, but it's very hard to mentally cope with. Mephi is going to drop an additional 4 power generators and get an air factory online, relying heavily on his reclaim to float his build. This would not be possible on a regular map unless you had all these tree clumps to take advantage of. You would need these 7 power generators to go for the air factory without the intermittent land factory. So this is a pretty power slim build. I'm sure he'll be going for the hydro sooner rather than later, but it's just kind of an odd thing to see. Mephi calling out, it's a bit late. I don't know what he's late for. Possibly he is in a time zone where it is very late at night. Yudi dragging out a lot of power generators. Is probably going to support his land factory habit as he finally moves his ACU to the front. So we are going to get commander battles. That's going to be after the 3rd factory for Mephi and the 2nd factory for Yudi, as a Selin makes its way up through to the north, breaking as many tree clumps as possible and being as big a pain in the butt as possible. I love how people spite each other when there are tree clumps involved, he says ironically, because it's not a lovely thing and it hurts when it's done to him. We've got an engineer expanding over to the right. Yudi definitely filling in these mass extractor slots. Even look at the try-hard manual reclaim going through on the back loop and on the other. In my previous experience as a Settins 1v1 player, which is very, very brief, I think 3 games in total, one of the things that I struggled with was my expansion through to the back end of the map. I did not devote enough engineers to it. Yudi's build looks kind of like mine. Mephi, on the other hand, has got 2 engineers spreading through to get these mass extractors, and I do believe will be going transport at some point in order to get the other expansions tied down. So perhaps that will be faster for him than the engineer walking method. We've got a T1 bomber out that is going to move in and go after, hopefully, these engineers that are probably going to hurt a lot to lose. If you, let's just look at this. So the ETA down here, can I please see the ETA? There we go. 1 minute and 11 seconds, and he's already halfway there, but he does have to build a mech. So it's probably going to be a 1.5-minute walk from here to here for an engineer, or a 1.5-minute roll, if you please. So the T1 bomber has just cost Mephi an engineer and about 2 minutes. This is going to cost him another engineer and another 35 or 40 seconds or so. And then it's about to cost him another 2 engineers, except that those spoofed the bombers by moving over in the opposite direction. That bomber, though, does appear to be going for this engineer, which is going to cost another 2 minutes. This bomber is going to pay for itself many, many times over. On the north side, Yudi also was able to position 2 interceptors to pick up a bomber that had moved to the north to attempt the same move on him. So I think this is definitely one of the most critical things that I can do in my future games, is to get this air aggression unit out. That is doing horrendous things to his build. Yudi now biting into the mass, doing quite well for himself on that reclaim, I am sure. That's what all the extra power is for, as he's bringing loads and loads of land factories into the world, and I'm sure we'll probably start building mass extractor upgrades as well, turn some of that temporary income into permanent income. And then Yudi is going to move out. I wish he would have picked up this engineer. That's going to give him a pretty nice, or give Mephi a pretty nice reclaim bonus, I should say. But unfortunately, he did not have it on the radar. Yudi not controlling his commander at the moment. So there he goes again, reclaiming. At this point in the game, even if you're overflowing, you still want to reclaim, because even if you overflow that mass, it means that your opponent can't have it. So every bit of it needs to be reclaimed as quickly as humanly possible, or ACUally possible. That is a tongue twister and a half. There's the transport. Mephi has got a full load of 8 engineers on board, and he is ramping up his land production like a boss. We've got 3, 6, 8 with an additional 4 planned for a total of 12. And we've got 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 factories planned for Yudi, although he does have quite the little spray of oh, that transport did manage to drop the engineers, but then got shot down. That is a hard hit to take. Yudi playing this very closely. That is a good move on his part. Yudi getting locked in by units, though, will lose out on a bit of HP and be forced into the water. So Mephi is going to come out with most of the reclaim from the middle. Yudi can probably loop around and get a little bit more on this edge. He's actually going to get directly back out of the water, or at least try to. But Mephi will come out ahead on reclaim. Yudi having very good scouting and kind of being lucky with units being in the right place at the right time. So we've got interceptors moving in on this area now. Another transport has been built and is loading up the engineers again. And the air scout is at the back. So hopefully this transport won't get scouted, but look at Yudi's base versus Mephi's half of the map. This is already at about 70% claim on mass extractors and land control. Mephi is just now getting started. This is not what you want to look like this far into a game. Let me go ahead and queue over so we can see exactly what is going on. So Yudi is at 65 mass, 980 power with 20 tanks and 8 interceptors to his name, 5,500 reclaim. Mephi is at 5,900 reclaim, with 19 takes, 14 arty, and 3 interceptors at his disposal. So, in the grand scheme of things, they are fairly close to each other. Mephi has more production capability, but Yudi has more mass, and quite a wide margin more mass once you consider his static income. That Selen is still out here freaking breaking trees. This is just evil. Completely, purely evil. There is no reason to do that other than malice. I think Yudi is going to have to camp in the water for a while because he is not going to be able to stand up to that ACU. We do have a T2 factory upgrade underway, that is land, in addition to 3 more land factories being built. So that is going to bring the total up to 12 land factories for both players, I think. And that's going to give Yudi a little bit of a leg up on his production moving into T2. Now, there's 3 mass extractors upgrading to T2 at the same time for Mephi. Notice that Yudi already has 2 finished and 2 more upgrading and at 50%. So this is going to give him, again, fairly significant mass lead, even not considering all the extra T1 mexes that he has. Yudi getting dangerously low on HP. Mephi at 7,700. Yudi at 29, and for some reason still coming out of the water. I don't know what he's thinking here, unless he's trying. I don't know. But he's getting close to a vet. So if he can get that, his regen will go up and he'll get a bit of bonus HP. He is 1 kill off of the veteran seat. Tanks moving in, not in a sufficient number, and then Mephi with a battle-ready commander at the front line. That is just going to be ownage at the middle, and more reclaim for Mephi to stick in his pocket. So there's a transport out here with some engineers. I thought that was going to drop in the water for a minute there and go for a naval build, but it looks like, no, that is just reclaim-oriented. Perhaps radar needs to be built on the front. Would not be a bad idea in the slightest to get that online. We do have another engineer picking up reclaimed there. Okay, so Mephi, for as far behind as he was previously, he is caught up slightly. He is 6k points behind, and he is, to a certain degree, getting expanded out through the map. But you'll notice that Yudi now has all but 1 mass extractor built on this side. Significantly more air, and that T2 HQ, which, now that I look at it, Mephi does have one as well. So we've got another engineer coming out there. Probably need to go for a TMD and T2 power, if I had to guess. Ooh, I like this. There's a drop coming around this side full of artillery. The interceptors, I think, have seen it. So let me actually queue over here. Yudi, how did you see that? It was pre-targeted, so it must have been tagged. Either it flew in here or a random air scout crossed it because it was pre-tagged. That was excellent map awareness, though. Good going on that. Yudi now ready to move in. His ACU vetted and regen slightly. Flew through the radar? Possibly. I thought it was too far south for that, but it might not have been. Once his ACU makes it up, with the help of these pillars, he is going to be able to crush the center. However, Mephi has just completed a T2 upgrade. So that is probably going to lead to a significant amount of point defense, which could cause some faltering movement in the center. Do be mindful with the Seraphim point defense. This hill right here is notorious for blocking Cerberus turrets and Seraphim PD. And then there's also another group of hills back here where if you build a point defense in exactly the wrong place, you can block your own shots. So always be mindful of these things when you're playing on the front line. Looks like this T2 point defense is going to be unable to hit units on that side of the hill, as you can see. Should have placed here, here, and here instead of these two. That one is probably fine. It's close. But yeah, there is a potential for this one especially to be blocked. It's tall enough. I think it's tall enough. It isn't built all the way in the valley over here. Alright, T2PD is online. Units approaching from the left, so the hill is of no concern whatsoever. I do wish that they would fix the targeting bug with the Seraphim point defense, though. That is one of the more annoying ones. When units are traveling directly perpendicular to the line of fire on the Seraphim PD, I think it's because the beam calculates as a projectile. It hits just in front of the unit that it's aiming at. And since it has no AoE, and the hitboxes for T1 units are so small, then it ends up missing a lot. I'm not 100% sure that that's the reason, but I think that is the reason. Valley. Yes. Okay. I'm sorry, Pegasus. Apparently, I said something very incorrect. Oh, I forgot to... Nope, never mind. That transport got shot down. That's where it went. 2 engineers coming in. Hapless bastards. UD is already established. Point defense is going to plinkety-plink before the units can even do anything. And that is the end of that. We've also got a T2 naval factory up here, which is paused, but is now building again. That is going to be a cruiser question mark? Yes, that is going to be a cruiser. It has a tac pack in the back. So the UEF cruiser will be very useful indeed, both as anti-air and as base bombardment. So that thing will be able to move up right into this little bay here. Should be able to do marvelously versus all of this stuff. There's a TMD, but it's built towards the front. Might be able to snipe off a couple of T2 mexes before he can realize what's going on. And then definitely will be able to harass all of this stuff back here. 1 firing cycle on each T1 mechs. They die, you can harass all over the place. Looks like UD is going to have to contract just a little bit away from these forces. This is actually a bad idea here. I fall prey to this a lot. If your opponent has no T1 already in the mix, shift G-ing your units into one clump is actually beneficial, because all of your DPS is concentrated into this tiny, tiny little circle as close as the units can pack together, and it makes them extremely good at killing moving units because they don't come into range quickly enough and you're killing all the ones on the front line. However, if there's artillery and you shift G, as was the case right there, then of course the artillery is going to be able to damage between 4 and 8 units at a time, depending on which artillery it is, and they are going to hurt you badly. Somebody started gun. That is going to be Mephi, who is currently hiding under a hat made out of a T1 transport. I guess this is all the rage now, you know, Seraphim with their unsymmetrical headwear. That's actually pretty fantastic. And a drop coming in from UD. That's going to be 6 engineers right over into a reconsideration of path and moving back. Let's see. Speedy, I welcome the sarcasm. Zooey's making use of their ability to hover. Gonna knock out that T1 land factory there. It looks like T2 is nearly complete on UD's commander, so he should be able to lay in a couple of point defense and protect himself quite nicely in the mid. It's amazing to me how much is actually decided at the center. The last game that I was in was decided in the middle by T3 units, oddly enough. And as you move through this, you would think that the Navy would have more of an impact because it could lock the center. But even if you have 4 to 5 Salems bombarding the center, if you have enough T1 or T2 and T3 units, that damage doesn't make that much of a difference. Eventually you will get it Navy locked, but you always have to have these land units on the front line, and even into the end game, they can break this center pass and do tremendous amounts of damage. So we've got Gun T2 and we're getting Shield. That's going to be the Rambocom for the ages. Hopefully able to deal with every one of these Ilshivas on a personal basis. And we've also got 2 Percivals on the front line. So this is actually going to be a little bit dicey for Mephi's ACU should he venture too far forward. Yudi's also got an ASF online, which he has brazenly flown across the center to show, yep, that's right, I got ASF. Bite me. It took you long enough, says Mephi. Got T2 air in the back, T2 power generators going down, and that is actually a 16-minute T3 air shift as another transport gets picked by Yudi. So looking at the center, this is going to be the push. Yudi is going to break this center, and since there's no Navy to contest him, there's not much Mephi can do. Mephi is just walking in to accept his fate right into the center of the mass of pillars and Percival. So I think that's going to be the GG. Tourney goes to Yudi. Won every single game that he played, and Mephi is taking the 2nd place. Well freaking played by Yudi. Mephi, I think, did an exceptionally good job. He definitely would have beat the snot out of me, but that's not saying much since there's a 900 rank discrepancy there. But Yudi just absolutely steamrolled. That early T1 bomber, I think, did most of the work for him, because Mephi's expansion was so delayed and his mass income was so much smaller for a good portion of the game that there was just no way he was going to regain his footing in the middle. That is a bad way to lose it from the very beginning. We're talking 4 to 5 minutes. Mephi was on his back foot, and it was an uphill battle from there. Cruiser fire taking out T2 mexes in the base. He just knew that there was no way he was going to win that. Well, that is the tourney. Well played to all the participants. Got several good games out of that. Unfortunately, the final relatively anticlimactic, but I really enjoyed today. That was a good round. I like seeing the new maps. I like seeing a couple players that I might not have seen before and people using strategies that they typically don't. And with that, I'm going to sign out of this tourney. That is going to wrap everything up for this video, guys. If you enjoyed it, feel free to drop a like and share it with someone. If you want to support the channel, catch the streams, or join the Discord, check out the links in the description. Thank you all for being at least partially insane, and I will see you in the next one.